Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into the top 10 most dangerous villains of Baldur's Gate 3. These aren't your run-of-the-mill bad guys. Each of them brings their own terrifying mix of cunning, power, and pure evil to the table. From twisted manipulators to relentless forces of destruction, these are the foes that pushed us to our limits and left us questioning every decision. So, sit back and let's explore the villains who defined Baldur's Gate 3 and ranked the most dangerous of them all. Let's get into it. Number 10, Mizora. Starting off our list at number 10 is Mizora, the devil who thrives on manipulation and control. While she might seem like a charming and witty figure, don't let her seductive nature fool you. Mizora is a ruthless villain at her core. As Will's patron, she ensnares him in a twisted deal that strips him of his freedom, effectively binding his soul to her whims. Every decision she makes is calculated to tighten her grip over Will, and by extension, the fate of others. Her contract traps Will in a living hell, and her offers come with strings that always benefit her far more than they do her supposed allies. What makes Mizora truly villainous is her relentless exploitation of Will's desire to do good. Even when Will believes he's acting heroically, like saving his father, he's playing directly into Mizora's hands. She masterfully turns noble intentions into personal leverage, all while maintaining an aura of devilish charm. In one particularly cruel move, she pushes Will to sign over his soul in exchange for his father's life, only to then use Duke Ravengard as a pawn in her own scheme. It's classic villainy. Take something you love and turn it into a weapon against you. Even when she shows some level of attachment or care for Will, it's never about redemption. It's about control. Mizora thrives on bending Will's will and using his moral compass to her advantage, which makes her particularly dangerous. She's manipulative to the core, always scheming, always looking for the next way to exploit a situation. Her care for Will, if it exists at all, is twisted and self-serving. And even though she loosens her leash after the main plot, it's only because she knows she's already won. Will's soul is hers, and she doesn't need to chase him anymore. So why is Mizora at number 10? While her manipulations and cruelty are undeniable, her scope of villainy is more personal than apocalyptic. She doesn't seek to destroy the world or conquer Baldur's Gate. Instead, she specializes in wrecking lives on a more intimate scale, making her villainy personal, cunning, and emotionally devastating. It's this focus on personal ruin, combined with her sharp, devious nature, that earns Mizora a spot on our list. However, compared to the world-ending threats we'll see further up, she slots in at number 10. Coming in at number 9 is the terrifying and manipulative vampire lord, Cazador Szarr. Cazador is the epitome of cruelty, ruling over his vampire spawn with a tyrannical iron grip that stretches back centuries. Unlike many villains who seek power through military or political influence, Cazador's hunger is much more intimate. He desires control over individuals, twisting their minds and bodies to serve his own sinister purposes. Cazador's villainy is rooted in his sadistic treatment of his spawn. He doesn't just dominate them, he breaks them, body and soul. His control over Astarion and the 7 other favored spawn shows a depth of cruelty rarely seen, forcing them to bring him fresh victims, rewarding failure with torture, and burying his own creations alive for years on end. For nearly 2 centuries, Astarion and the other spawn lived in a state of perpetual fear, obeying his every command without question, bound by the blood pact that Cazador enforced with lethal precision. Cazador's palace, a Gothic monstrosity in Baldur's Gate, is a monument to his vanity and power. Beneath the ballroom floors, where nobles and political elites would gather, lay the blood-soaked dungeons where Cazador kept thousands of tortured vampire spawn locked away, ready to be sacrificed in his ultimate ascension ritual. This wasn't just about achieving personal power, it was about ascending to godhood by feeding on 7,000 souls, including his most precious spawn, Astarion. This level of megalomania elevates Cazador from a mere villain to a nightmarish figure willing to obliterate lives for his own dark glory. In the game, Cazador's manipulation goes even further than physical torment. He twists the minds of those around him, including his mortal servants, who serve him willingly, obsessed with the hope of receiving the gift of vampirism. It's this psychological manipulation that makes him especially dangerous, not just to his spawn, but to the entire city of Baldur's Gate. He infiltrates the city's upper echelons, hosting grand balls for nobles while secretly feeding on them, gathering information and bending political figures to his will. However, Cazador's villainy isn't limited to Baldur's Gate alone. His centuries-old grudge against the Gur people, whose children he routinely kidnaps and turns into spawn, highlights his desire to dominate entire cultures. The fact that he kept Astarion under his control for so long and tortured him for centuries is just a glimpse into his absolute depravity. Despite his immense power and centuries of cruelty, Cazador remains reclusive, preferring the shadows of his palace to open conflict. His downfall comes not from a heroic confrontation, but from his arrogance, believing that his spawn could never rise against him. But make no mistake, Cazador's presence in Baldur's Gate is one of sinister control, both psychological and physical. Cazador earns his place at number 9 for his sadistic treatment of his spawn, his deep psychological manipulation, and his grand scheme to ascend through the sacrifice of thousands. His control is intimate, twisted, and terrifying, but his limited scope beyond his own domain keeps him from climbing higher on our list of the most dangerous villains. Next up at number 8 is a character cloaked in intrigue and manipulation, the Emperor. At first glance, the Emperor seems like an ally, offering guidance and protection from the Mind Flayer's influence. But don't let the silver tongue fool you. There's far more to this illithid than meets the eye. The Emperor is no hero, and his actions, while framed as self-preservation, come at a heavy cost to those around him. The Emperor's villainy starts with deception. The truth about his past slowly unravels, revealing that he was once a loyal servant of the Elder Brain, working to bring ruin to the city of Baldur's Gate. His theft of the powerful artifact that the Githyanki seek is a major plot point, but what's most damning is how he used that same artifact to break free from the Elder Brain's control, only to continue his own manipulative games. This shift in allegiance from slave to self-serving manipulator makes him more dangerous than your average villain. He's free from the Elder Brain, yes, but now his own ambitions take center stage. One of the most chilling aspects of the Emperor is his control over the tadpoles. These little parasites grant the Emperor an almost godlike influence over you and others, slowly nudging you to embrace illithid power, even when you resist. This was never about saving you. It's about control. And as the game progresses, it becomes increasingly clear that the Emperor is willing to bend and break anyone to ensure his own survival. What makes him truly sinister is his relentless manipulation. He offers freedom, but at the same time, he binds you with invisible chains. His clever speeches and reassurances that he's acting in your best interest are merely a facade. The moment you question him, the mask slips, and his true nature is revealed. Ruthless, calculating, and willing to betray you without a second thought if you dare to stand against him. This is most evident when you side with Orpheus, a choice that prompts the Emperor to abandon you entirely and ally with the very entity he claimed to be protecting you from, the Netherbrain. The Emperor's moral ambiguity is what lands him at number 8. While he may not fit the traditional mold of a tyrant or warmonger, his actions are undeniably evil. He forces you into a corner where you must either bend to his will or face his wrath. And even though he helps you along the way, it's always on his terms. The Emperor is a master manipulator, using promises of freedom and power to mask his true intentions, ensuring his own dominance at all costs. He's the kind of villain who forces you to question everything you think you know, which makes him both compelling and deeply unsettling. In the end, the Emperor isn't fighting for a greater good. He's fighting for himself. And that cold, calculating self-interest, combined with his manipulative nature, earns him a solid spot in our top 10 villains of Baldur's Gate 3. Coming in at number 7 is a villain that's far more personal. You. That's right, the Dark Urge. Imagine being the embodiment of pure evil, crafted by the Lord of Murder himself, Baal. The Dark Urge isn't just a villain, they are the ultimate test of your choices, forcing you to grapple with the violent nature buried deep within your character. The Dark Urge is unlike any other villain on this list, because you are both the victim and the perpetrator. Before the tadpoles gave you a sliver of freedom, you were an unstoppable force of destruction, driven by your father's relentless need for murder. The urge to kill was woven into your very existence, making you a walking embodiment of chaos and death. And even though the tadpole gives you a degree of autonomy, the pull to slaughter still remains. What makes the dark urge particularly sinister is the complexity of the evil they embody. They're not simply a mindless killer. They've committed unspeakable atrocities, fully aware of what they were doing. From murder and torture to cannibalism and necrophilia, the dark urge reveled in the pleasure of inflicting suffering. Baal didn't just create a murderer, he created a masterpiece of malice, a being who found joy in the pain and torment of others. The tragedy of the dark urge lies in the internal battle. Before the tadpole, they might have tried to resist, even going so far as to join a paladin order in an attempt to do good and suppress their violent instincts. But Baal always won in the end, forcing his child to kill their loved ones and allies, including that very order of paladins they once hoped could save them. Resistance was futile. The dark urge was born to kill, and nothing, not morals, vows, or even love, could stand in the way of that destiny for long. In Baldur's Gate 3, your journey with the dark urge is a constant struggle between choice and compulsion. Whether it's the horrific murder of Alfira or the terrifying blackout moments where Baal's influence overtakes you, you are never fully free from the Lord of Murder's grip. The question isn't just whether the dark urge is evil, because they absolutely are, but whether they want to be evil. Do they embrace their nature, or do they resist and try to reclaim their soul from Baal's bloody clutches? This personal internal conflict, coupled with their potential for redemption or ultimate damnation, is what makes the dark urge a unique villain. As the player, you are forced to confront the darkest parts of your character's past and decide whether they will succumb to the monstrous urges that define them or fight for something better. The dark urge is the embodiment of Baal's vision of murder, making them a villain with both profound depth and terrifying potential. Coming in at number 6 is the Absolute, aka the Netherbrain, a force to be reckoned with. We're not talking about your run-of-the-mill elder brain here. This thing is on another level entirely. Sure, some folks might argue that it's just a CR-14 creature, something a seasoned adventurer or even a guy like Elminster could handle. But they're seriously underestimating its power. The Absolute is more than just a big mind flayer with psychic abilities. It's a colossal threat, a godlike being in the making. Let's break down the reasons this thing deserves its spot on this list. The Netherbrain is 50 times the size of a typical Elder Brain, and its psionic abilities are so overwhelming that without the protection of Orpheus, you wouldn't even be able to get close enough to touch it, let alone stab it. You think you can outsmart or outfight it? Good luck, because it is pure thought itself. A knife in the brain won't work here. It's not just sitting there in a jar, it controls an army of illithids, complete with several nautiloids. We're talking about a force that can rapidly convert countless people into more mind flayers, exponentially growing its power. Remember how fast it turns people into its thralls? Yeah, that's not something you can shrug off. The real kicker is the Crown of Karsus. The Absolute has this artifact from a Netherese wizard that grants the potential for godhood. Elminster himself says this thing is a threat to the gods, the weave, and the universe. We're talking universe-ending potential here. This brain isn't just messing with common folks. It's enslaved red dragons and mind-controlled Gortash, one of the game's biggest schemers. Even high-level wizards would have a tough time resisting its influence. Gortash thought he had a deal. Guess what? The Absolute didn't care. It snapped its mental fingers and Gortash was a goner. It's not just about the Sword Coast. If the Absolute wins, it's more than just a local catastrophe. It's a complete collapse of order across Faerun. The Absolute's mind control abilities and its power to harvest souls wouldn't just create an army of thralls. It would fundamentally disrupt the balance of power among the gods. With every soul it claims, it doesn't just weaken individual mortals. It drains the very essence that fuels the divine, destabilizing their influence over the world. This isn't just about conquest or domination. It's about unraveling the fabric of existence itself. The Absolute has the potential to spark a divine crisis, where even the gods would be powerless to stop the Illithid Empire. So why isn't the Absolute ranked higher? It's undeniably powerful, but it lacks the charisma or personal vendetta that really makes a top-tier villain memorable. The Absolute is more of a force of nature, an existential threat, rather than a cunning adversary with layers of intrigue. Villains ranked above it have a direct personal connection to the player, along with more compelling narratives and character development. The Absolute may be an apocalyptic force, but at the end of the day, it's just a giant brain, lacking the nuanced motivation that would push it higher on this list. All right, at number 5 is Orin the Red. And don't be fooled, this isn't just another psycho throwing chaos around for fun. She's the avatar of Baal's twisted legacy, the embodiment of murder. And while she might seem like a loose cannon, she's far more calculated and dangerous than she first appears. What makes Orin stand out isn't just her madness, it's how personal she makes it. She's not content with being just a distant figure. She's in your face, messing with your mind, and making you doubt every step. Orin thrives on chaos, sure, but there's a razor-sharp cunning behind it all. The moment she kidnaps one of your companions, the stakes get real. It's not about saving the world anymore, it's about saving someone you care about. And that's Orin's twisted genius. She knows how to hurt you where it matters, how to make you desperate and angry, pulling you into her bloody web of manipulation. She's the type of villain who doesn't just want to kill you, she wants to break you first. Her connection to Baal, the god of murder, gives her power and legitimacy that most villains can only dream of. She's not playing for some grand empire or throne. No, she's carrying out the divine will of a literal god of death. Every murder, every ritual, every twisted game she plays isn't just for kicks. It's a sacrifice to Baal, a step closer to his twisted vision for the world. And when you realize she's doing all this not just for herself, but as part of a cosmic game, her danger level skyrockets. But why isn't she higher? Because, for all her danger and twisted mind games, Orin is still driven by a singular obsession: murder for murder's sake. Her chaos, while terrifying, is self-destructive. Unlike other villains with a broader vision, Orin is stuck in a loop of violence and bloodlust. She's terrifyingly dangerous, but that narrow focus limits her in the grand scheme of things. Her power is immense, but it's not world-ending like some of the others higher on the list. Orin is a wildfire that can tear through everything in its path, but at the end of the day, she burns herself out. Still, make no mistake, Orin is a deadly personal threat. She's the type of villain who will get under your skin, tear your world apart, and make you feel every single second of it. But that same obsession that drives her is what keeps her from reaching the true heights of villainy. Number 4 on the list is Gortash, a villain that might not seem as flashy as others at first glance, but don't underestimate him. He's not just a cog in the Absolute's machine, he's a master manipulator who's clawed his way up from nothing to become one of the most powerful men in Baldur's Gate, and arguably the most dangerous mind behind the chaos in Act 3. Gortash isn't about brute force, he's all about control. He embodies the tyranny of Bane, his divine patron, and he's a master at making people bend to his will without ever needing to lift a sword himself. Gortash's rise is nothing short of legendary. Born a cobbler's son with no status, he becomes the first Archduke of Baldur's Gate, a title no one else has ever held. He orchestrates the creation of the Steel Watch, a seemingly impenetrable police force that enforces his rule. His control is so absolute that even stepping foot in Baldur's Gate feels like entering his domain. From the moment you arrive in the city, you're not just navigating its streets, you're walking through Gortash's personal dungeon. The Iron Throne, the Steel Watch, the political oppression, it's all Gortash, pulling the strings from behind the scenes, and that's where his real power lies. But here's the genius of Gortash. Unlike most villains, he doesn't rely on monstrous powers or world-ending magic. His strength is his influence. He manipulates Baldur's Gate like a puppet master, controlling the city's elite, bending the Flaming Fist to his will, and using his machines to keep the citizens in line. His grip on the city is so tight that even without fighting, it feels like you're struggling against a force you can't escape. The Steel Watch is an extension of his Iron Fist. Those mechanical monstrosities are Gortash's way of keeping everyone in check, and until you dismantle them, he's untouchable. Now, let's talk about his fight. Some say it's underwhelming, but they're missing the point. Gortash isn't about a grandiose physical showdown. He's a tyrant, and his second phase, where he grows larger and summons chains, perfectly embodies that oppressive control. It's a manifestation of his true nature. He doesn't just defeat his enemies, he binds them, crushes them under the weight of his authority. It's not some flashy transformation into a monster. He stays human because that's what makes him terrifying. Gortash is a man, not a beast, and that makes his power all the more chilling. While he might not have the raw chaos of Orin or the apocalyptic presence of others higher on this list, Gortash is the perfect embodiment of tyranny. He doesn't need to wield a sword because he's already won the battle before it even begins. Number 3 on the list is Auntie Ethel, an absolute force of malevolent charm hiding behind the mask of a sweet, elderly woman. Don't let her grandmotherly act fool you. Auntie Ethel is a hag, and one of the most dangerous manipulators you'll meet in Baldur's Gate 3. From the moment you encounter her, she's playing a deadly game, tricking you into thinking she's harmless, only to reveal her true, twisted nature when it's too late. What makes Auntie Ethel so terrifying isn't just her power as a hag, it's her psychological manipulation. She's a master of deception, and her encounter can make you question every decision you make. If you side with her early, you'll find yourself wrapped in her web of lies, and by the time you realize her true intentions, it might be too late. She lures you in with false kindness, only to twist the knife at the worst possible moment. And when she drops her mask and reveals her true form, the horror of what she really is hits you like a gut punch. Her lair, deep in the swamp, is a reflection of her wickedness, an eerie, twisted place where she preys on the desperate and the weak. Ethel doesn't just kill, she enjoys tormenting her victims. She can rip a character's eye out or threaten to take their unborn child, all while delivering these horrifying lines with a twisted smile. Her voice acting is top tier, switching from sweet and soothing to cruel and mocking in an instant. She knows how to get under your skin, and the more you interact with her, the more you realize just how dangerous she is. Auntie Ethel's role in the game doesn't end with Act 1. If you think letting her go in the boss fight is the last you'll see of her, think again. She reappears in Act 3, as twisted as ever, proving that you can't easily escape the reach of a hag. Her return not only ties up her storyline, but also adds layers to the complex world of Baldur's Gate 3, showing that the decisions you make early in the game have far-reaching consequences. Auntie Ethel is not just a side character. She's a masterclass in how to create a memorable, multi-dimensional villain. She's more than just a hag. She's a psychological horror wrapped in the skin of an old lady, waiting to ruin your day. Number 2 on the list is Ketheric Thorm, a character defined by both tragedy and irredeemable choices. Ketheric isn't just another villain you cross swords with. He's a man driven by the agonizing loss of his daughter, willing to burn the world down in a desperate bid to save her. His arc is steeped in sorrow and the twisted lengths he goes to in order to achieve his goals, which leaves a lasting impact on those who encounter him. Ketheric's devotion to his daughter is what makes him such a complex figure. His love for her, however toxic and twisted, is palpable. But his willingness to use dark forces, including mind control and dominating the very daughter he's trying to save, highlights how far gone he is. His actions, murdering innocents, raising an undead army, and committing countless atrocities, make it impossible to justify or redeem him. Yet, as the final confrontation approaches, there's a gut-wrenching moment where you might feel a sliver of sadness for this man. His last words, calling out for his daughter, humanize him in a way that few villains in the game are. And then you find the drawing she made for him as a child, a reminder of the father he once was before he lost everything. What sets Ketheric apart from the likes of Gortash and Orin is the sheer weight of his character arc. The entire Act 2 is dominated by his presence, even if you only meet him at the end. His command over the Shadowlands and the curse that plagues it serves as a constant reminder of his power and his despair. While Gortash and Orin feel more like traditional bad guys, Ketheric is a tragic figure, one whose pain and suffering are intricately tied to the world around him. He believes he's nothing more than a pawn of the gods, a sentiment he shares in some of his final words, giving players a glimpse into his tortured psyche. Ketheric's fall into evil feels earned and understandable, even if unforgivable. and the way his story is intertwined with the larger narrative gives him a gravitas that's hard to match. His boss fight is one of the most memorable in the game, a multi-phase battle where his connection to Merkel, the god of death, is fully realized. And even though Aylin's rage and thirst for vengeance are justified, you can't help but feel the weight of his choices and the sorrow that comes with his inevitable downfall. Ketheric Thorm is a villain of depth and emotion, a character who leaves you conflicted, not because you think he should be saved, but because you understand the immense tragedy that brought him to his end. Number 1. Raphael, a devil you can't help but love to hate. From his very first introduction, Raphael steps onto the stage with unmatched charisma, blending sharp wit, charm, and a menacing undertone that immediately captivates players. He isn't just another deal with the devil trope. He's a masterclass in lawful evil, oozing confidence and manipulation. Whether you're charmed by his seemingly helpful demeanor or deeply wary of his true intentions, Raphael remains one of the most memorable characters in Baldur's Gate 3. Raphael's voice acting and dialogue are arguably some of the best in the game, rivaling even the most beloved companions. His confidence is unwavering, and he never lets you forget that you're playing into his hands, even when you think you're outsmarting him. His smooth-talking, silver-tongued nature makes him incredibly persuasive, so much so that, even in a good playthrough, you might find yourself tempted to accept his offer. That's a testament to the brilliance of his character design. Raphael is written to make you doubt your choices, to make you wonder if, just maybe, he's not that bad of a devil. But as Act 3 unfolds and you step into his domain, the House of Hope, the illusion shatters, and you see Raphael for what he truly is. The house is a twisted, hellish nightmare, where the true extent of his cruelty and sadism comes to light. You realize how deeply you've been manipulated, and all the charm he projected earlier becomes a thin veil over the darkness beneath. And just when you think you've seen it all, he caps it off with one of the most epic boss fights in the game, complete with him belting out his own theme song like a true Disney-style villain. It's flamboyant, it's over the top, and it's perfect for a devil who's as much of a showman as he is a threat. Even in defeat, Raphael manages to leave an impression. The game never lets you forget that this isn't just a battle of might, but a battle of wits and souls. He's a devil who plays the long game, and even though his immediate plans may fail, there's always the lingering sense that he's still scheming in the background, waiting for the right moment to strike again. The fact that some players even wished they could spare him, to keep him around as an arch-nemesis, speaks volumes about how well his character was developed. Raphael's allure comes from his ability to make you question yourself and your decisions at every turn. He's the kind of villain who doesn't just oppose you physically, but gets under your skin, making you wonder if maybe, just maybe, he's right. And that's why he earns the top spot on this list. And there you have it, the top 10 most dangerous villains in Baldur's Gate 3. From the manipulative to the monstrous, these characters brought their own unique brand of chaos and made our journey through Faerun unforgettable. Let me know in the comments who you think deserved the top spot. Did we get it right, or did someone else give you more nightmares? If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more epic content. And don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.